Hello and welcome to the Picture Show with Austin and Phil Rude. I'm Austin Rude and I'm the son.
My name is Phil Rude and I'm the dad. Each week we watch a movie, we get on mic, and we talk about it.
That's true. And this week we're going to take a dive into the 1975 classic Jaws.
That's right. And let me just say right up front, terrible ride.
Is there a ride?
Oh, yeah, no, we'll get into it. Yeah.
I'm
just playing. It's the Universal Studios ride. It's terrible. Yeah.
I didn't even realize.
Anyway,
credited as the movie that sparked a fear of sharks across the nation, Jaws tells the story of Amity Island after it becomes the scene of a few brutal shark attacks. The town becomes divided in the chaos, with the police chief wanting to close the beaches and the mayor wanting to keep from disturbing the tourism industry. In the midst of the panic, it becomes a race to kill the shark. The movie stars Roy Scheider, Richard Dreyfuss, Robert Shaw, Lorraine Gray, and Murray Hamilton, along with a few others. It was written by Peter Benchley and Carl Gottlieb, and directed by Steven Spielberg.
That's right. Spielberg's first feature.
His
first feature for theatrical release. He had made some things for TV and some short films ahead of this. He actually made a TV movie called Duel that, if you have not seen it, I cannot recommend enough. It is amazing. It's really a great movie.
That's pretty awesome for this to be as... I thought this was like...
No,
like
he was...
in his prime, like, you know, after E.T. or something.
No, this was way before E.T. This was before Close Encounters. This was before Raiders of the Lost Ark. This was very, very early for Steven Spielberg. He came out of the gate swinging.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
For sure.
Let's start with, like, what do you think of this movie? I mean, I think it's well established that Jaws is, like, a classic.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people talk about it, so I don't know. How do you feel about this movie?
I have a very long, rich history with this movie. This movie was released in the United States 3 days after I was born. And by following logic and knowing that my parents saw this in the theater, I can pretty confidently say this was my first theatrical experience. Even though I was probably weeks old. Maybe.
You were terrified.
We had this movie that we had videotaped off TV, so we had a VHS copy of it. So I watched this movie religiously as a child. I worshipped at the altar of this movie.
Really?
Yes. Jaws. I would a lot of times I would fast forward to when they went out on the boat.
The cool bit.
Now, as an adult, I really, really appreciate the local politics angle of the first half of this movie. I think it's super interesting to see, especially in the wake of COVID, how a town's economy is weighed against human life. But regardless, this movie, I have such a reverence for this movie. I would put this as it's hard to say this isn't a perfect movie because I just think everything is done so well. It's so enjoyable. This is considered the first blockbuster for a reason. This movie, I think, changed everything for Hollywood in general. And it just made such a huge impression on me as a kid.
Okay, I think it's funny to hear you say that because as a kid, I didn't like Jaws.
Sure.
I remember seeing it once or twice and I was like bored. I was like, all right, when do we get to the shark attacks? When do we get to the cool bit? Where's the boat? What's going on? Why are people talking? It felt like I was like a kid sitting at the adult table and I'm like, I don't understand what is being talked
You're
about.
You're watching city hall meetings and like town council stuff. Yeah.
What is that old man? What language is he speaking?
It is.
That's just sailor talk.
He's
Austin.
just eating a cracker while he's talking. Don't worry about it.
Is he part pirate? What's going on here? I
Robert Shaw
didn't
is kind
know.
of channeling a pirate in this movie.
That's what it feels like. But yeah, then again, different era, so I
Sure.
think maybe I was used to action movies and Transformers and explosions and cuts every
Interesting,
half a
yeah.
second. So to have like a almost slow paced movie like this, I was bored as a kid.
I didn't clock it, but you don't really see the shark until probably close to an hour into the movie.
Yeah.
You know, so like for a movie that's built around a shark that you catch a little glimpse of here and there, but don't really see, I think by today's standards, that's a gutsy move. That's something that would infuriate a lot of audiences. You know what I mean?
Even though it makes it a better movie. But
I think for sure. That was, famously like the mechanical shark didn't work. So it was planned to be shown a lot more than it ended up being, and actually made for it was a happy accident. It made for a better movie in the long run.
Right.
But
I think this movie is so good because, like, all of the talking bits, like, because
right.
there's so much, you understand the weight of why is it important to shut down the beach, or why is this shark that killed like one person out of thousands on a beach, why is that important to the story? And that's because the whole town is affected by this. And
sure.
You get to feel that fear that people are feeling.
And you understand the motivations of the main characters. You understand that Roy Scheider's character, that Chief Brody, why he wants to shut the beach down.
Because he's terrified of water,
and
he wants to spread that to everyone
else. He is
else.
terrified of water, which I think is also a great choice for this movie. But also the fact that he feels guilty that he didn't stand up against the mayor at the beginning of the movie. I like that his backstory plays in, that he was a New York cop and felt like he was making no headway, and he moved to a small town where he thought, I can make a difference, and somebody still died on his watch. I like all of these aspects of character motivation that are put into this movie that make it a human story that's about sharks. It's not a shark story. It's about people.
It's about our reaction to scary stuff.
Right. And this is the kind of thing we had touched on earlier before we recorded about, like, this is the franchise poison, is that the first movie is always about something bigger and more important, and it's actually well done and well crafted. And everything after that, okay, now we're going to make movies about the shark.
Right.
And it's just
you guys cheap, like sharks?
Just very cheap, just a big misunderstanding of what makes the original work.
Right. They just boil this down to, okay, big shark, a lot of death,
right,
a lot of blood, people screaming. What do? Make a bigger shark.
Make a bigger shark.
Get some more blood in there.
More victims, more kills,
That's
more.
Right.
And I will go on record as saying I think Jaws 2 is actually kind of a fun movie. It has none of the depth that this does, but it is a fun movie. And it's very much like a retread of this.
I haven't seen that. I have actually seen Jaws 3.
Have you really?
I watched
the SeaWorld one.
Yeah, I watched that with Mom. Like, it was just on TV.
Oh, it's so terrible.
I didn't know. I was like, what is going on? Yeah. Like, it didn't make any sense to me. But yeah.
That one, like, the gimmick was it was 3D. It was a 3D movie.
Jaws 3D.
And you can see the gimmicky shots where the shark is supposed to be coming at you, and just how awful it looks now. Yes.
But you're just watching at home, so there's no 3D aspect
there's
of it.
There's nothing
so
to it, yeah.
Not worth it.
And then Jaws The Revenge is the fourth one with our boy, Michael Caine. And
I didn't know he was in that.
He is in that, and he reportedly has never seen it. He said, I heard it was terrible, but I never saw it. I have seen the house that it built, and it's magnificent, or something like. He has a quote
Get that paycheck,
on record
brother.
of like, I did that. He won an Oscar while he was filming that movie. He was not there to accept his Oscar because he was filming Jaws 4. There's all this big legend around Jaws 4 and Michael Caine. But, you know, I think it's hilarious that he just said, yeah, I got paid very well for that. And I bought a house like in Jamaica or something. And it's just,
that's kind of funny to me because, especially funny because when I was like researching to write the synopsis for this, I saw a thing of like, why didn't any of the original cast return for Jaws 2? And it was because they were really underpaid, or so they claimed to be, for this movie that essentially like
they
changed
were.
cinema and like made a boatload of money. Like they didn't see any of that money.
They weren't offered a bigger cut to come back and do a sequel.
Yeah.
Richard Dreyfuss is not in it. Roy Scheider is, and Lorraine, what's her name? Lorraine Gray, who plays his wife.
Yeah.
She did. I believe at the time she was married to a producer of this movie, which is how she, you know, you can claim nepotism or whatever, but it is how she got attached to this movie. But I think she's actually really, really good. I really like her in this.
She's charming and kind of funny.
I think she's real funny and really like she's a cool 70s housewife kind of thing, you know.
When she's like, it's fine, let him on the boat, and then she sees the picture of a shark eating a boat. Get him off that boat now.
Yes.
Like that was really funny.
Yeah, she's in, I think she might not be in the third one. But she is like the main one in. She
stays in 4. The franchise.
Yeah, she stays in there. But yeah, I really like her in this movie. I think, and I love Roy Scheider. Shout out! I'm going to sidetrack us for a minute. Time for our weekly segment of who important to cinema died this week. William Friedkin died this week, and he did a movie that Roy Scheider was in. You probably heard of it, The French Connection.
I have heard of it, yeah.
Roy Scheider's great in that. William Friedkin also directed a wonderful movie about a crisis of faith disguised as the scariest movie I've ever seen in The Exorcist. He did a movie I watched this morning is called The Hunted, which is pretty good. And something that I think he did that is slept on a lot is a cop movie from the 80s called To Live and Die in L.A., Willem Dafoe's in that, William Peterson, and that's a really, really cool movie about like a counterfeiter and a Secret Service agent.
Okay. I didn't know who you were talking about until you said The Exorcist, and I was like, oh yeah, I heard the guy
William
that made
Friedkin,
that die.
really, really cool. A bunch of interview clips about him floating around this week where he just straight talks shit about people that he thinks are hacks and that weren't good to work with, and then he also is like, hey, Tommy Lee Jones is one of the best people I've ever worked with, and stuff like that.
I kind of like it when industry people are just like straight up and like, hey, this guy who has a persona of whatever is a douchebag.
Right,
like, be real about it.
But Roy Scheider in that movie, and I've also, 70s were really good for Roy Scheider, who I feel like didn't work a lot past a certain point. Kind of people stopped knowing who he was, but he did the first 2 Jaws movies. He was in The French Connection. I just rewatched for the first time in a long time a movie called Marathon Man, and he's in that playing like a CIA dude. And Roy Scheider is like, I think, a really compelling actor. He's like a character actor who he brings some weight to whatever he's doing. I don't know. He's a really interesting actor, I think. And I think it's on display in Jaws a lot.
And in this one, he's, I don't know. You're able to connect with him really well.
For sure.
Just like right off the bat, like someone died and like that first scene where they discover the body, and he's just like distraught. Like you can tell, like, right in his face, and then he's like, all right, we're shutting it down. He's in a rush to like I think the line where he's like, "Where are our beaches closed signs?" And they're
Oh
like,
yeah,
we
don't have those. Yeah.
And he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna make some."
Right.
Like,
He goes to the hardware store and like gets all the supplies to make signs immediately.
he doesn't know the protocol, but he's like, "I'm gonna protect these people.
Right.
Like, I see a danger. I'm gonna help." And I think like him jumping into action like that, even without a plan, like, I don't know, that connects you to his character in a way.
Oh, I think so. I think you see the motivation in him, like, being distraught. Like, I moved to New York to get away from this. Or I moved from New York to get away from this. And
He just
here
wanted
I'm
a
dealing with it.
vacation.
And let me do what I can to make sure this does not happen again.
Yeah.
And then he runs into, you know, of course, the bureaucracy that becomes such a big deal in this town. That mayor, the mayor in this...
What a skis ball.
I hate that guy so much. That
He's
actor's
almost
great
a cartoon
because
villain.
he's so terrible. Yes, he is.
And then I hate that the sheriff gets slapped by
Oh, I know. Yeah.
the mother, and I'm like, you're totally misdirecting your anger here, woman. Like, I get it. Your kid died. But that mayor is who you should be mad at. Like,
Yeah,
that scene rubbed me the wrong way.
I get it, but I also like that Roy Scheider is like, no, she's right. I should have stood my ground on this. Like, he's just sort of like, you know, like all the time now we're looking for accountability from people in the system and just saying like, hey, it's not enough to be a good cop who looks the other way. You have to be a good cop who, or whatever it is. I'm not trying to pick on cops or anybody, but like the idea of like, you have to have integrity in this.
And
you
kind
have,
of fight the system.
you have to
when
be
it's
the
wrong.
person to push back when you know that it's wrong. And
to be fair, he is the only person in that scene who I think would be... I think it's an impactful scene because any other character wouldn't care.
Take it, right?
Yeah, like, he was impacted by it.
Yes.
The mayor would have just been like, "Lady, you don't know what you're talking about," and like moved on.
He carries that weight with him, and you know, you see it in the dinner scene when he's just like, that night he's kind of buried where him and his son is mimicking him.
Yeah, I know what you're talking
where
about.
he's just run down at the end of the day, and it's such a beautiful scene anyway. Like,
and I love that the kid doesn't really know what's going on. Like,
no,
he's just
just playing a game.
Yeah,
and
it cheers up his dad.
And but yeah, the whole thing of like he's getting drunk and being like, we're gonna go down and gut that fish, and then we're gonna go out and find what's going on. And
he does.
His wife's even like, can you do that? And he's like, I'm doing it. Like, he's not dicking around with what the rest of the town council wants or any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think, you really, really get to know these characters. And it goes on throughout. The only one you kind of don't is Hooper. But you get to understand what Quint's whole deal is with the USS Indianapolis speech. You're like, oh, this is a guy who has PTSD.
He's heavily traumatized.
This movie in 1975 is talking about the PTSD of World War II soldiers. World War II, who we only have kind of recently reckoned, oh, these guys suffered too. This wasn't the happy war where everybody came home victorious and high-fiving each other.
Right,
like,
that's usually skipped over a lot.
Yes, it totally is. And this movie addresses PTSD, and that's Quint's entire character is a representation of PTSD.
Yeah, and also a display of like what sharks can do and all that.
Right.
I thought it was interesting how they kind of tied that in with. I mean, it's real history, but it's impacting this fake story about sharks with a real story of sharks.
It's actually there's a uncredited writer who they needed a scene, and he wrote that in like 10 minutes or something like that.
Really?
They needed something. It was a last minute addition to this movie, and it actually just fits like a puzzle piece right into the middle of it.
That's awesome.
It really is, yeah. Because
whoever wrote that monologue, then
I cannot
props to
remember,
them.
and I am apologize to whoever that was, because it is one of the best scenes. It's maybe the best scene in this movie, and one of the best scenes in like modern cinema, I would say.
Especially the fact that it starts out so playful with them just like,
Right,
oh
yeah,
you've got your scar,
let's
I've got
check out
this
our
scar.
scars and all this, and it turns into even the way that Brody asks him, like, oh, what happened? Like,
Yeah.
he's like, oh, I can't wait to hear this hilarious story, when he's been talking about arm wrestling and things like that.
Mhm.
And, you know, he lays it out. The way they shoot that, where it's kind of fixed on him, and then they'll, like, look over to Richard Dreyfuss just looking like, oh, you even see him kind of going, oh, this is why you're an asshole.
Right.
Yeah.
The mood suddenly shifts. It's like, oh, this is, yeah.
Yeah.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild that this movie is that old and talking about things that we're still talking about now.
Yeah.
I want to circle back to my rich history with this movie, because I had this movie and saw it so much off of TV, and TV that got a signal from an aerial antenna. So this wasn't like now with a digital signal, you either get the signal or you don't. Then you could get kind of a weak signal.
So you got a version that cut in and out.
It didn't cut in and out, but the picture, like watching it now on DVD or watching a good print of this movie, you really can't. Like, I never realized how much day for night shooting is in this movie.
Is there a lot?
I think every night scene is day for night.
Huh.
And also, like, just some of the colors are more vivid. You can see things when Richard Dreyfuss is underwater in the cage.
Yeah.
And the shark is kind of in the distance but coming towards him. I could never see it clear on TV. All of these parts where I'm just sort of like, oh wow, this is really what. Whenever I watch it now, still I'm kind of blown away by how good the cinematography is, because I never noticed it because our picture just wasn't very good, and I was watching it off of videotape that I'd watched over and over and over again.
Right,
and you start to lose quality. But also there are a lot of blood in this movie that clearly was cut out for TV.
Right, and some racy scenes. There's nothing too bad in this movie, but I don't know. Did that beginning scene where they're undressing on the beach, did that make it into
that was on TV?
Cable TV?
No, this was not cable TV.
Oh,
this was on like the
yeah.
ABC Sunday Night Movie kind of thing. Yeah, it was in there. I do know there was issue. Something about that picture had to be adjusted to keep it from getting.
They make it darker, so you just can't
something
see.
like that, because you could see a little too much coming up from underneath, and it's just sort of like, yeah, we need to. They needed to make an adjustment, but yeah, that was in there. But there were also other scenes that are not in the theatrical movie that, you know, when they used to cut things out for content, sometimes they would put like a deleted scene in there.
Oh, really?
For TV, yeah. I grew up watching a lot of movies that I would watch later, and there would be a scene missing. Where's that scene where this? And people who grew up with like cable and stuff were like, "What are you talking about?"
It's always your favorite scene too.
There's a scene where it's around the time that Brody is getting all the shit for his signs.
Yeah.
There's a kid getting like a clarinet lesson, and Quint is in there buying piano wire that he uses for fishing line. He's in like this music store, and the kid's playing something, and Quint just starts mocking him like ba 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 ba, like really loud, and until the kid quits playing. He's basically just in there trolling this kid who's getting his band lesson, and it's just this weird scene.
It's a weird introduction scene.
But yeah, I've watched that for years, and then like later on would watch this movie, and I'm like, hey, where's that scene where they're in the music store? But yeah, it's
that iconic clarinet scene. What happened?
It was weird because it was like the first time you saw Quint in the whole movie.
Although, I mean, knowing that, I'm kind of like glad that they stuck with the nails on the chalkboard.
Yeah, for sure.
That was such a cool introduction of his little spiel of "I'll kill your shark for you."
And I think he sums up what would have been the best solution, what everybody knows would have been. Let's talk about this with the elephant in the room, with the COVID. You know, everybody opposed, for lack of a better word, welfare for people who couldn't work during COVID, for people whose, you know, restaurants had shut down or what, you know, the people opposed that.
Right.
And it's like, I understand it's expensive, but this gets everybody over that hump, and then we can get back to normal.
It's really a tale as old as time.
It really is.
Us, like, we find something is dangerous, and we're like, oh, here are some precautions we could take. Oh, those are expensive?
Those are expensive.
Okay,
those will
mind.
cost us money. Those will do this. Those will do that. And ultimately, even local economies, it wins out. You know, like it's...
I think the one instance of that where it wasn't the case is like the hole in the ozone layer. You know how we found out like, oh, these aerosol cans or whatever are like causing this, and like worldwide they just banned them, even though that was like cheap to produce.
There is a yes.
I wish
I don't know that aerosol got
more.
Completely banned, but there was
but a type of aerosol,
sort of like a across the board. People were like, okay, we can find another way to make this. You know, like there was it's kind of like with styrofoam too. The same time that like you still see styrofoam cups, but not nearly as often as you used to.
It's not around as much.
A lot more people are like, oh, okay, let's switch away from that. Like, yeah,
go green, go plastic,
right? Yes, go oil based. Yeah, but the whole
It heavily in the modern day. It really does resemble COVID.
It's hard to not watch this movie and not think of COVID, and also too,
people drew a lot of parallels during
for sure
the pandemic, for sure.
But also, like I worked in the beer business during the start of COVID, and I know for certain that there were bars that were supposed to be shut down that were not, that were secretly open.
Of course,
you know, and you know it's hard to say, I get it, but also I get it. And like you can look at this town and you can go, I know what the right answer is to shut the beach down. But also this town is all built on tourism and their beaches. And I get where everybody's coming from there, and just weighing the option of like, well, what are the odds of being attacked by a shark over and over and over again?
Right.
But you know, like realistically, it took what, 3 or 4 deaths plus that dog to act for them to actually shut the beach down. And even then, you see the mayor like opposed to it.
The dog was the last straw, I think. And really, PETA came in, they shut the whole town down. Am I correct in thinking that, I don't know if it's the same woman, but there's the mom of the second kid who dies, the kid at the beach.
Mrs. Kittner.
Yes. Yeah. Is she in the town hall meeting? Because there's a woman in the town hall meeting who's like, shut the beach down for a week. What are you talking about?
That's a different woman. That's one of the she's in 2 or 3 other scenes like on the beach.
Oh, okay. Like that. I thought it was the same woman.
No, it's not the same one.
So the same people who are against these safety regulations,
right?
they find out about it and then they
because
go and put themselves in danger anyway.
Mrs. Kittner didn't know that woman had been killed.
That's right.
And in the town hall meeting, that's what they were talking about.
Okay.
I also love that they film that in an actual like city hall. Like
it looks real, yeah.
Like the way it's all cramped when they're all going through the hallway, and everybody's screaming at each other, and like Brody hits his head on a sign that's like city accountant, and because he's just like rushing down this hall and being distracted, and it's just sort of like this movie feels so real all the time.
I wanted to talk about that. I want to talk
Let's
about
do it.
The vibe of 70s movies, 80s movies, even like 90s and 2000s has some of this, but then we kind of veered a little more towards dramatic movies.
It's
but like
cleaned up and prettier.
Right.
Yeah.
But these movies have like such a realism quality to them, like in the lighting, but also in just like, there's a lot more still shots. There's a lot like shots in this movie last like 10 seconds on average, I think.
Yeah.
That's my guess at least. Because I feel like we hold a position for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just not used to that.
There's a lot of movies. Like medium and wide shots.
Yeah.
When there's a conversation happening, they're not going shot, reverse shot, reverse shot. Mm-hmm. They're just holding a medium shot where everybody's standing around talking.
You feel like you're standing in the circle watching everyone.
Exactly the way you're supposed to feel. And some of the big shots, like after Mrs. Kittner slaps Chief Brody and walks away, it's a wide shot with the big tiger shark that all those rednecks caught. Yep. And everybody in the background, but in that frame, Chief Brody feels small because he feels small. Like every composed shot is not about looking the prettiest. It's about what's fitting the feel of what's going on in this scene.
It's symbolic.
What makes it feel real. I've been watching, I did this like last year too. I get in this phase of watching like 70s movies again. Mm-hmm. And I think I keep going back to this era of watching. Like I watched Bullet and I watched Marathon Man. I will go watch The French Connection again. You go back and you watch these movies that feel grounded in a way that movies today don't, because movies are, movies that were shot in New York in the 70s when New York was like a dangerous and dirty, filthy place. And you feel that. Like, it feels gross. And
the thing for me is I don't always have like the attention span for that. Like,
I know it's hard to sell that to
it's tough,
younger
but also like
viewers. Yeah.
I like it. I feel like I can, I could put on Jaws for an afternoon and that feels like the whole day was that movie kind of, because it just, you get to soak in the movie. You get to like, feel yourself immersed in it. It's more immersive.
I think so for sure.
So it's kind of harder to like sit down and be like, all right, well, this is going to be like, not a chore to watch, but it's going to be, I'm losing my words here.
More intense.
Yeah.
It's
it feels more time consuming, even though like there are longer movies than this. Like this movie feels longer than Oppenheimer somehow for me because it's just like I was so immersed in it.
I think that, and because this feels like two movies.
It does as well.
The first half and the second half are so distinctly different that it feels like, oh, I've watched two different things, and it's like, nope, all same movie, all the same thing. But yeah, you get in the beginning where it's crowded. Brody's like walking through the streets, and the mayor's chasing after him, and the marching band is going by, and they're in the middle of all the people like flagging him down, complaining about their local business. Someone's parked in front of my store.
Busy.
Small town stuff. And it's all going on in City Hall in those crowded little spots. And then it's three guys out on the ocean. Big expanse. Again, shots that make the boat look really small in this big expanse of ocean.
But it's beautiful.
It's great out there.
Gorgeous, yeah.
It's great shots. That boat is, I think, one of the greatest fictional vehicles of all time. Like, most iconic. I think.
The Orca?
The Orca, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's right there with, like, the Millennium Falcon. I'm trying to think what else.
Quick, think of another, the Batmobile.
The Batmobile, yes.
Yeah.
I think it is, honestly, like, right there. I think that boat has so much character to it.
There's a weird thing I have where I love watching boats sink. Like, that sounds really weird.
I get it.
Okay,
Yeah.
but there's something beautiful about, like, a slow, unstoppable tragedy like that of just, like, this boat's gonna sink. It's too late. And then you just get to slowly see it submerge, and it's never gonna come up, and you know that.
The way they do
cool
it in this movie is great, because it's sort of like they show the water level in the cabin rising,
Yeah.
and then that point where Quint comes out with life jackets and just throws them to him, going, "This boat's going down." Like, it's
He knows it, yeah.
like, there's no getting around. We have no radio because I smashed it like a fucking lunatic. And we're out here in the middle of the ocean, and there's a killer shark out there, and we're going to be in the water with it. So,
And speaking of consequences, he is the one that dies. He kind of...
it's true.
He does get the consequences of his actions, in
Yeah.
a way. Even though he's... I don't know, is he the hero? Is he the...
No, I don't think Quint is the hero of this movie.
He's a complex character. I haven't wrapped my head around him fully yet.
He's kind of an antagonist of this movie.
Like, he's a dick sometimes, but then, like, when Hooper, is that his name, the scientist guy? Like, when he's like, "You untied the wrong rope," or whatever, he's like, he's yelling at him, and then he just kind of goes, "Hey, next time, just ask what rope to pull." And he's all zen then, and then, like, a minute later, he's yelling at people.
Right.
It's like, it felt a little inconsistent to me.
I think he's a little bit unbalanced. I think he's a little nicer to the chief, because the chief is the one who's going to pay him.
That's fair.
And he didn't want Hooper to come along, but he knew he needed the help and that he could do the work. I like the dichotomy between Hooper and Quint. That I hate rich college boys, which I think is, I've seen some making of documentaries, and apparently that was representative of the friction between Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss on set. They didn't like each other. Apparently Robert Shaw drank a lot and would just say horrible shit to Richard Dreyfuss all the time.
Jesus. But in the movie, it comes off as, like, very, I mean, like, you've got, it's kind of like an old ways of doing things versus a new way. Yeah. Or, like, he's the sailor that's been through some shit, and he knows everything about everything.
He's like, the old school way, we don't need any of your fancy equipment. But then they get down to it at the end, and he goes, "Well, what can you do with this stuff?" Like, he gets to the point where he goes, "All right, what do you have? I'm open to ideas now. Now that we're sinking and going to die."
And maybe that wouldn't work if we hadn't entrusted the one person who drops things every time he's scuba diving.
Oh my God, that's true.
To do this. Like,
that is true. I hadn't put that together that, he dropped shit last time too.
It's every time. That's like his whole thing.
That's his thing, is he's the clumsy scuba diver.
Whoops. There goes my oxygen tank.
Butterfingers, yeah. In the book, I believe Hooper dies as well. He does not survive the cage being attacked.
Okay, so we get a little more of a Hollywood ending this way then.
A little bit, and there's no, like, air tank explosion. The shark just dies because it's been harpooned so many times. It just sort of, like, rolls over and dies at the end.
I could see how that could work in a book. But a little anticlimactic for a movie like this.
Yeah, it's not the big bombastic thing. This doesn't become, I think, the big blockbuster without the big crowd-pleasing explosion at the end. And then there's other character stuff, like Brody's wife has an affair with Hooper in the book.
That is so random.
It is weird and random, but there's other, like, character. I read it a long time ago. I was maybe even in junior high school when I read the novel. And I just remember not liking the novel a lot, but I think a lot of it had to do with like, this isn't like the movie.
Right.
They didn't stay out like overnight. They would just go out every day and hunt the shark.
That's interesting.
It was a lot different, and I think the changes made were for the better, because I do like this movie.
But that also sounds like an interesting book, you know?
Yeah, it's not like a deep book. It's like an airport book, you know, like it was a big paperback bestseller.
Okay.
You know. But yeah, that's all I remember from it. It may be better than I remember. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
I just mostly remember all the changes like that. I don't know. What else?
I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
Are you afraid of sharks?
I don't have like an active fear of sharks where I like won't go in the ocean, or things like that. If somebody, if I was at the beach and like they were like, "Hey, we spotted a shark in the water," like I would be like, "Okay, I'll give it some room," you know, that kind of thing. I understand sharks don't generally attack human beings, and if they do bite, they usually let go right away because apparently we don't taste good. I understand that this mythologized sharks in a very negative way, but at the same time, they're a predator in the same way that I'm like not actively afraid of bears, but if I saw a bear, I would give it some room, you know?
But you're also not going to protest the movie The Revenant because it shows bears
because it shows bears in a
bad way,
in a bad light. You know, just like I think all predatory wildlife, you know, I don't really let it keep me from going a lot of places. I don't swim in, you know, fresh water in Florida because alligators are a real thing, and
right,
you know, but yeah, I generally like to give them their space, animals their space if they're
appropriate.
Out there.
Yeah. Funnily enough, when I'm at the beach, I'm more scared of like stingrays.
Yeah. Jellyfish.
I'm paranoid. I'm like shuffling my feet in the sand. Like I'm like, what if I get stung?
That's
what if
what
I get stung?
To do. Yes.
That I'm way more afraid of than sharks. Sharks are like some imaginary thing. They're like dinosaurs. You know,
yeah.
Obviously not really, but like in my mind, I'm like.
But they are prehistoric.
It's true.
It is true.
As we learned in The Meg. Which is a far better shark movie.
A far superior movie.
But yeah, no, I've never seen a shark in real person.
I've seen one in like an aquarium.
Okay, I guess that's true. I've actually touched a shark. I've touched a baby. I think it was a tiger shark. I don't know. At SeaWorld, there was a little, and we got to touch baby sharks on their back.
Cool.
But yeah, I think that's the only real time I've ever seen a shark. Never really been like, I haven't had an opportunity to be afraid of a shark. So
Logan's caught a couple of sharks.
He
fishing
has,
off
like,
Sanibel. Yeah.
And every time I don't believe him.
No, he's
got the photos
of
though.
them. Yeah,
of that. It's the same rubber shark every time.
Yes, it's wearing a hat. You know, it's a Beanie Baby.
Yeah, I don't know what he does to catch them, but
there are. I mean, where we live. There are sharks in the river. Often there's like black tip sharks and I want to say brown sharks get up in the river.
Okay.
And
they just come across them while fishing, I guess.
There was a big problem with people flushing their medication because it was poisoning one species of shark that where it would go through the treatment plan and some toxin would stay in.
Yeah, please don't do that, guys.
Yeah, for real, don't do that.
As a now registered pharmacy technician in the state of Florida,
congratulations, Austin. I forgot we buried the lead. Austin is newly certified as a pharmacy tech.
That's right.
Congratulations. Very proud of you.
Thank you. And I can say pills are to go in your mouth. Not all of them, but for the majority.
As prescribed, yes.
Yes, not in the toilet.
Yes, do not flush your medication. Out. Take it back to the pharmacy. They will dispose of it properly.
Or to a drop box.
Yes.
Go.
There are designated
your
places.
Local fire station should have a place for that.
I believe so, yes.
in general, yeah, don't flush them
Don't
down
flush,
and
yes.
kill
They
innocent
have,
sharks.
but that's a thing that they have to tell people because it does hurt local wildlife in the river.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Are you afraid? You said you aren't afraid of sharks, and I wanted to add to that you said you never thought about it. I grew up in a landlocked state, so for me, like I guess I never developed that fear of sharks because it was nothing that I had to worry about.
And well, that's strange because like I've grown up in Florida. I'm constantly surrounded by water. I've gone to the beach more times than I could count, but it's a thing of like I've seen alligators. I see them all the time. Mm-hmm. I've seen dangerous animals. I'm more afraid of dogs because I've seen like some really scary dogs, but I've never seen a shark in the ocean.
Right.
So to me, I'm just like, statistically, it's unlikely.
I also go out there and look around and I
it.
go, I could swim faster than that guy. And I can swim faster than her. Some children out here. Yeah, I'll be fine. I can get out of here.
Let me just kick my brother in the way and it's fine. He's caught them before. He knows what he's doing.
Take one for the team, Logan. Yeah, but no, not actively afraid of sharks.
No.
And I think that's appropriate.
You should be either. Listening audience.
He pointed at the mic right there.
They saw. They knew what I was doing.
They know. Yeah, I don't know.
Do you have anything else to touch on with this one?
Not really. Like I think this was just a great revisiting for me. I had a lot of fun watching this again.
Yeah,
I didn't take any notes because I'm just like,
you know it
I've
already.
seen this movie. I was, lines were going off in my head.
You right can write the script as watching it.
Amity, as you know, means friendship. We did talk about...
I actually Googled that watching the movie because I was like, what does amity mean?
Does it really mean that?
It does mean friendship.
Yeah, friendship. We did talk about, while we were watching it, the influence of this movie, like the cultural reference points.
Yep.
Of there's a production company called Bad Hat Harry, and that's a line from this movie. The movie Bad Santa with Billy Bob Thornton, really fun movie, honestly. The safe that he's trying to break into is it's called the Kittner Boy 2000, which is a reference to Alex
grim.
Kittner, and Bruce from Finding Nemo, the shark.
Yeah.
Bruce is what they called the mechanical shark on set in this movie. So
I didn't know that. Yeah, that's cool.
It's all. I think this movie is just super influential to a lot of people, movie fans, and I think people who went on to make movies were so influenced by this that they want to pay tribute to it. I feel like this is just it
opened people's eyes up to a lot of cool movie techniques.
For sure,
like that whole. I always forget the name of the shot.
Oh my god!
When they see the shark at the beach,
the zoom in.
What is it called? A zoom dolly?
I can't remember. It's like you're zooming in the lens while you're pulling the camera away, or vice versa.
Yes.
And I did one of you one time, and it's a really.
It's a fun thing to do, like in general.
Yeah, it is. If you can time it right,
it's very effective.
That shot is so amazing in this movie. Yeah.
And I kind of noticed a similarity, probably intentional, with Stranger Things. How that the opening of this movie where he's rushing around and like people are telling him, that.
Oh, and when he's like going to the office. And people are
and he's getting the signs to stop the beach.
Right.
That reminds me of the very opening episode of Stranger Things where Hopper
the introduction
is
to Hopper,
getting in and they're hearing about the missing kid and there's this drama to deal with, there's that drama, he's got to go make his rounds and stuff like that.
There's not an ounce of originality in Stranger Things.
There's not.
I'm not saying that as a diss, but yes, I think there's probably some Jaws influence. We all know like that there's Spielberg fingerprints all over that. We talked about J.J. Abrams, and now he's like a huge Spielberg disciple and stuff like that.
Of course,
yeah, it's,
we all know, but I just thought it was a cool thing to see, because I watch Stranger Things and I know it's all references, but I only get like half of the references. So then I see this movie that I've seen before, but like never really paid attention to, and then I'm like, oh hey, look.
You're kind of like
Jaws.
Reverse engineering the references.
Literally, yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Which, I mean, that's fair. Look, we all go through a lot of that. Like, I saw Jaws a lot as a kid, but I didn't see The Godfather until I was, in my 20s. And a lot of older, like, new Hollywood, this era of movies like Taxi Driver and Marathon Man and stuff like that. I didn't see all that till I was much older, but I had heard all of the references. I'd heard the parodies, this and that. And then you go watch the movie and you're like, oh, well, this is probably really great before it was parodied to death. It's great, but you know what I mean?
All week long, I've been making, we're going to need a bigger boat. We're going to need a bigger couch to watch this movie.
We're going to need a bigger chair. We're going to need a bigger washing machine.
All of this. And yet, I didn't even realize that line is what happens when he actually sees the shark and is horrified and in shock. I didn't know the significance of the line.
That's it with all of it, is it's context. The thing you're missing in a reference is context, and you're like, oh, well, that makes so much more sense than just a line that someone thinks is clever. Like,
right. Now it's impactful to me.
Right.
Like, I actually get, oh, that line really hit, yeah.
Right.
We should start saying that.
We should start saying we need a bigger everything. Oh, that's fantastic.
That's just what I got.
I think this is, and on that same J.J. Abrams note, though, I will say he references this movie in his TED Talk all about mystery boxes.
Oh, he's done a TED Talk?
A long time ago, where, he talks about the concept of the mystery box.
He classifies this as a mystery box?
No, but he talked about this as an influence and why, I think he's talking about, like, the mystery box isn't enough, you have to have character stuff, and I think he pulled the dinner table scene, where he's, hiding his face and stuff like that, and just, you can find it on YouTube, I'm sure, but it's actually a pretty good TED Talk.
Interesting. Okay.
Just talking about, what character is important, things like that.
Yeah.
I know everybody hates on J.J. Abrams now.
I don't hate on J.J. Abrams.
I don't hate on J.J. Abrams either.
I love Lost. I think every day for
I think
Lost.
there are some really, really high points of J.J. Abrams' career that I will forgive whatever missteps, he may have made more recently.
And as a Doctor Who fan, I see him as the American Stephen Moffat. I don't know if that makes sense.
I know what you mean by that.
They're very mystery box, very like over the top kind of.
Yeah.
There's something similar with them.
I think he's better than Stephen Moffat, just the Moffat stuff I've seen, but I really feel like
it's not like a one-to-one
Sherlock
comparison.
really like fell apart at a certain point and stuff like that,
Moffat's bad at following through, but
because
I
don't think he puts character front and center enough.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's another...
We could do an entire other podcast.
I don't want to get started on that because I'll never stop. And you know it.
Well, let's move on from that then and get over to shout-outs.
Okay. Let me see. I have a shout-out this week. It's a band by the name of Eight Eyes.
Like a spider?
Maybe. I don't know the significance of the name, but
all right then.
I did find them on YouTube and on Instagram Reels recently, because what the two lead singers of the band like to do is take two different songs, like existing popular songs, and they will kind of mash them up into a conversation, singing to each other, like overlapping. And I just think it sounds really cool when they do that. So I put a link to their YouTube. They have some original songs as well, some covers, and then what they like to call song conversations, which is what they do. And I don't know. I'm blanking on how to describe it, but it's cool.
No, I'll check that out. I checked out your shout out from last week.
Yeah,
I thought that was A, really interesting topic, and B, I think she's very funny.
She's kind of hilarious.
I found her. I watched a few videos from her this week just because you set the hook in me with that one. I thought she was very funny.
She's got a video on the current Lizzo allegations as well.
I have not watched that one yet, but I have been wanting
it.
to because I'm following that story much closer than I should.
As is the thing with popular culture sometimes. Anyway, what are you shouting out this week?
This week, I am going to shout out a podcast that is available, I believe, only on Spotify. But this is from podcaster Rishi B, and that is B as in like the animal, like the bumblebee.
Okay.
B-E-E.
Yeah.
Rishi B has a podcast called The Oldies Mingle with Rishi B, and I think it's on Spotify because there's a way to have music in your podcast on Spotify through, using Spotify links, so artists get paid when you use things like that.
That is, I've never heard of that.
Yeah,
That's
but
really
when you
cool.
step outside of Spotify, I think it doesn't apply. I'm not sure on all the specifics, but
licensing
I'm
on that
pretty
sounds-
sure that's why, because it takes care of all the licensing.
Right.
But yeah, it's a music podcast. It's a all different genres. He's talking about he had an episode about music that's gotten a boost from being in TV or movies, and he talked about the Kate Bush song from Stranger Things, and he has an episode all about guitar, wandering guitar songs, he calls them. Anyway, it's a really fun show, and it's cool to listen to a show about music that actually plays music as well. Because that is so hard to do. I know there's a few others like Coverville. Soundography plays clips. Jay Hammond C gets some musicians that give him permission on his show sometimes. But there's a lot of shows that talk about music but don't really play a lot of it. So
I get the struggle there, but it is kind of annoying to sometimes have to be like,
it's just,
go check
now
this
I
song
have to
out
go
and come back.
make a list while I'm listening. But Rishi's a really good guy too. So give that a listen on Spotify. That is The Oldies Mingle with Rishi B.
Oldies Mingle, okay.
Yeah, check it out. On that note, we want to thank you for listening to The Picture Show with Austin and Phil Rude. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on your podcatcher of choice. It helps our visibility. It helps us grow the show.
That's right. And if you want another way to help us grow our show, please tell your friends about us. That is, if you have any friends left after the horrific shark attacks of this summer.
Come through and destroyed all of your friendships.
If any of us survive this sinking boat, listen to our show. What are we reviewing next week, Dad?
Next week, we are watching an animated movie from Europe. That's right. We're getting international.
Oh, no.
We're watching The Illusionist. It is on HBO. I have not seen this movie in years. It is a French animated movie, I believe. It's the same people who made, if you're familiar with the film, The Triplets of Belleville, the same people are involved in this. These are beautiful, gorgeous, very sophisticated animated movies.
I have never heard of that.
I cannot wait to watch this again.
What year is this? Like what
early
era?
2000s.
Okay.
Yes.
That gives me a little bit of
I would
understanding.
also recommend The Triplets of Belleville as well, but I did see on Max If I can get used to saying that. I know we have to shift with name changes and branding. But I saw that it was on there. I immediately threw it on my list, and I got really excited to watch it again. So,
Okay.
Really looking forward to this. Please watch along with us because not only because it's helps you keep up with the conversations that we're having a little bit better, but this is one of those movies that I think is really underseen and underappreciated in the United States, and I would just love to see more people check this out.
That sounds really cool.
So
I'm
The
excited
Illusionist,
now that you're bringing that.
I am as well. I'm really excited to revisit that. Us, if anybody wants to get a hold of us, how can they do that?
Well, they can find us at our email. It's austinandphil@gmail.com. And please email us because I am the keeper of the email. And so far, all I've gotten is spam from Google. And we want to hear comments from you guys.
I would love to get some feedback.
We want some feedback. We want fellow movie fans to talk to us.
For sure.
So hit us up on there, and, we'll even read out your comments.
Yeah, we'll discuss them here.
Yeah. Where else can people find us?
They can find us on Letterboxd. Austin is Austin and Rude, and I am Phil Rude on Letterboxd. We keep lists of what we're watching. I have a list of everything we've watched for the show. Check us out there, and check out some great reviews. We're starting a new segment this week where we pick out our favorite Letterboxd reviews from the movie that we have talked about. So this week, we have reviews on Jaws from Letterboxd. Austin, what do you got?
I'm really excited about this because I think Letterboxd has some really fun reviews.
They're great.
Let me just see. I have a review from username Sobham, who gives Jaws 3.5 stars and says, "I'm just wondering why a professional shark hunter was living in a town that had apparently never had a shark problem before." Like, no wonder he was asking for $10,000. This was this man's only chance to get some coin. Very valid point, I think. And just a funny comment. So,
I think so, yes. I have one from Aaron Michael on Letterboxd, and it gives Jaws just a heart, just a like.
Okay.
No star review. "If the Babadook is a gay icon, then so is Jaws. Big mouth, stunt queen, kills heterosexuals, just wants to be left alone to eat."
Amen.
And hey, you got no argument from me.
You slay, Bruce. You slay. This is cheating, but I also kind of wanted to throw in this one.
Oh, let's do it. I have an extra one, too.
A user by the name of Thomas Flight gave Jaws 4.5 stars and said something that I think resonated with me. This is a serious review, but he said, "Perhaps the best time in cinema when mediocre original concepts were executed to perfection."
Sure.
And that's what I think. This is a very simple plot for a movie, but it's executed so well.
I think that's an excellent point, for sure.
What do you got?
I have one from Josh Larson, who gives Jaws 5 stars and says, "Trump isn't the mayor. He's the guy who's dumb enough to go in the water, then pushes the kids off their raft to steal it and paddle back to shore in terror."
Accurate.
Very accurate. That's our new segment, and it's a lot of fun because it just gives us another reason to scroll through Letterboxd reviews. There's some great stuff in there.
The gift that keeps on giving.
But look us up on Letterboxd, please, and give us a follow. On that note, Austin, do you want to read the credits?
Okay, yeah. Looks like we did everything ourselves.
It does look that way. There you have it. We'll see you next time on The Picture Show.
See ya.